I have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief. Know what I want.
Hey they, welcome back to another Brock Talks. Today I wanted to talk about something that I get asked quite often. Hey Brock, I got a date night with the missus. I've got a night off of homework. What should I watch? What would you recommend? And every time that I suggest this movie and I talk about how much I love it, I get a really unique and different reception to my opinions. And either the person hasn't heard of the movie or they're surprised by how much I actually like it. And I kind of wanted to talk about it. And that would be the movie Fury. Fury is one of my favorite movies. I fucking love this movie. And it's really interesting that people don't like it as much as I do. And I really wanted to talk about the reasons why I love this movie so much and why I think it deserves a little more recognition. I find it enthralling and exciting and just overall a completely beautiful piece of art. And today I'm going to be going over the three main topics that I talked about in the last video. The three topics being character, plot, and cinematics, just like I talked about last time. I think those are important factors in a movie and really why I think this movie is underrated in pretty much every category. So strap in. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you do like this content, please throw a like on it. If you have suggestions for anything else you'd like me to rant about or get deep inside this disturbing brain about, I would love to hear you out. So throw a comment down below if you have any other suggestions, and thank you so much for tuning in. This is Brock Talks, and today we're going to be covering Fury, possibly my favorite movie of all time.
You knew we were coming. So they got drunk as lords and they shot themselves at sunup.
Why are you showing me this?
Ideals are peaceful. History is violent.
So if you guys didn't see my last video, I definitely suggest you watch it. The link for that video will be down in the description below. But that video was on Uncut Gems. And the way I laid out that video is I talked about the characters, the plot, and then the cinematics. Now on this video, I really love the characters, and I feel like for the best flow for this video, I definitely believe that we should put the characters second to plot. So we're just gonna grab the plot, throw it right up above characters, and that way we can have a nice flow to this video for you guys. So first, let's go into the plot. From what I could tell, this movie takes place in 1945. That would put it sometime between the Battle of Bulge and the surrender of the German troops to the United States. So sometime between then, it's telling you basically that this is towards the end of the war and our troops are exhausted and beat down and they're ready for the war to be over. It's almost like that last trek, and you could see the finish line, but your legs start to just give out. So it's a really interesting timeline during the war, and it kind of tells you how significant these events are, but also how insignificant it is, because the finish line is almost there and really you just gotta coast through to the finish line. So you join our characters inside their tank. There is 5 of them at the start of this movie. You meet Gordo, who's one of the gunmen. You meet Bible, who is played by Shia LaBeouf, just a fantastic character. Probably one of my favorite performances of Shia LaBeouf ever. And that still stands, honestly. Every time he's on screen, it makes my jaw drop. It's just, I'm in awe of him. But we'll get into the characters in a little bit. So you meet Bible, you meet Grady. He's from Alabama, I believe, just a very redneck, short-tempered man. And then it's all led by Brad Pitt's character, War Daddy. Now, I will be getting into characters here in a little bit, but just overall, they have stuck together since the beginning of the war. It's a part of the setting of this. It just really gives you a feeling of family inside their tank. Now, at the beginning, their gunner, their second gunman, Red, has died. It looks like his head got blown off, and it's really just an overall eerie feeling. Gordo won't leave him alone, and you begin to think like, man, that's rough. They have an interesting dynamic where you could tell that they care for each other more than honestly most of us care for each other. So it's really heartbreaking to see Gordo clenching his hand and just having a hard time letting go. So you follow them miraculously as bombs are raining over them. They make it back to base, and you meet their replacement gunman, Norman. Now, Norman is a clerical typist. He is not trained to be in a tank, and it's very apparent right off the bat that he is super young and very inexperienced compared to the other guys. So we start off by meeting the very, very experienced and just beat down group of tankmen, and it's very apparent quickly that he doesn't belong there. And while it's really hard not to dive into the characters right now because I want to talk about them so bad, but we'll get there. Let's stick to the plot here, Brock. You can do this. You can do this. So you meet him. He is told to clean off his seat, and we head off to the next mission. And it's very apparent very quickly that Norman's not ready, and casualties happen, and you really are just in shock that the damage that each regiment has to take and just traveling from point A to point B. It's something that not a lot of people think about, but these little ambush attacks and stuff, they weren't ever planned for, but man, they happened, and it's heartbreaking to see what damage they could do. So you kind of get this overall sense of you're surrounded by enemies, and so that's apparent right from the very first interaction with German troops. They are children, but that was a very common tactic with the Nazi party to recruit children into small camps and teach them how to use weapons. So it was tragic, but not unheard of during the time. It's an interesting dynamic with this unseasoned soldier has to be now thrown in the middle of this highly effective tank who has survived pretty much against all odds, just having to deal with this newbie now. Is really interesting concept, and we've seen it before where people underqualified or whatnot being thrown into battle, but it's still extremely chaotic and holds for great tension throughout the movie. You need to go and meet a new platoon to go over some strategies to take a small town or villa, I'm not sure what you would call it, small village or town. They need to take and rescue some troops who are stuck there. So they have to go meet this new platoon, and on the way there they meet some complications, and by the end of it our tank has the senior leader being Brad Pitt's character, War Daddy, and from here on out I'm just going to be calling him War Daddy. So War Daddy shows up to this town, and he takes command, gets the duties of his troop, and they head off to help rescue some troops that are stuck in this area and pinned down. So we go through that whole fight scene. We lose a lot of other tanks that are with us, but we end up taking the troops and bringing them back. And a really extremely intense fight scenes throughout this, and it just makes for great, extremely tense war battles. So really great stuff. They don't overly focus on the gore. You kind of catch snippets of it you know, somebody's head being blown off here, whatnot, but they don't overdo it, which I really like. I know that some people have a big problem with war movies like Saving Private Ryan, who have these intense and extremely gory scenes up front. I think they do a great job of just giving you the right amount to where you're like, oh my God, that's crazy. But in the same stroke, it's not scarring you for the rest of the movie where that's all you can think about. So you're kind of going throughout these fight scenes, throughout them traveling to free these people. They free the people and they get back to the objective, and they start heading back towards camp. Now, on their way to camp, they run over a landmine, and the landmine explodes, and it breaks the tracks on their tank. So they're kind of dead in the water. They can't move. War Daddy sends Norm up to keep watch on the platoon and to look out for any oncoming enemies. And sure enough, an entire platoon of the SS... I can't remember if we consider them a platoon or... I think it's a platoon. We're going with platoon. If it's wrong, go pack yourself. But, so we find out that a platoon of SS Army is on their way. And they basically, Grady says that they need to go. They have to run. They have to make a run for it. And War Daddy says, no, I'm going to fight. And you guys can head out if you want. And basically, by the end of it, everyone decides to stay and fight it out. Now, everyone at this point understands that they are going to die. And so you're just following them in their last moments. And at the very last second, as the movie's winding down towards the climax, Norm does end up making it out of the tank alive. And he's trying to hide underneath the tank, and he's seen by a very young officer who is on the enemy lines, and he luckily doesn't say anything to his comrades, and Norm passes out underneath the tank and eventually gets rescued by the American forces and gets told that he's a hero. And overall, it's just an extremely good plot. It's you are going through, you meet your characters, you're faced with an issue where one of the gunners is dead, and then your replacement is an under-seasoned soldier who doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He is trained for something completely different, and you have to figure out how to keep your men alive and to save and complete your missions that you're given by the other authorities. So you are going through this movie with this constant tension, and it just is beautifully done. And the plot is just, it's a war movie. There doesn't need to be this outlandish or M. Night Shyamalan style twist. It's just, they were given somebody who didn't know how to do the job, and they had to make do with it. And in the end, they saved a lot of people by standing their ground, not giving up, and sacrificing their lives for others. And it was just a great plot. So we're going to dive into each character and why I believe that they were some of the best performances I've ever seen. And that it's hard to see a movie where more than one character just completely is beautiful. They just do a beautiful job. So we're gonna dive into characters, number 2. And I kind of flew through the plot because I have a lot to talk about with characters, and I don't want to sell you guys short. So the first character we kind of see stand out is Brad Pitt's character. He's the ranking officer. He's the main one. He just, the very first scene, he kills this SS higher ranking officer, and he's trying to get Grady to do his job, and you could just see that he is a no-nonsense style officer from back then. While he does have a great relationship with his subordinates, he is the leader, and you can feel the tension every time he's in the room or in the tank or he's talking to somebody. It's dead silent. They do a great job of commanding that respect that a superior officer has. And then you see amazing stuff from him. Like, he finally gets back after they had lost somebody so important to them, Red, and he gets back to the thing, and he just, trying to keep his cool, he tells his subordinates to get stuff ready to head out again, and he goes behind a gas fill station and just loses his shit. And just in that moment, you feel so bad for him, because you understand the necessity of keeping it inside and not freaking out the people that are looking up to him, but you feel it. It's there. And throughout the movie, he just kills it. He just is constantly showing you that the number one thing is to get his men home alive. And then we meet the replacement for Red. And Red was talked about as one of the best machine gunners in the army. So Norm's character has a lot to live up to, and he can't. It's impossible. They loved Red. Red died. They haven't grieved for him because they're in a war. They can't. And you can just feel these moments of just sadness, and you're just like, it's palpable. The tension and the feelings, you could touch them. They're so good. In every scene of this movie, you feel with these characters. You bleed with them. You cry with them. You're angry with them. And I just don't understand how somebody could watch this movie and just take away, oh, this Brad Pitt's just being a misogynistic man, or I think sadomasochist is something that I saw in pretty much every bad review, and I'm confused where they get that from, because he's trying to teach every member of his squad how to live life, and he does it beautifully. And while I do understand that War Daddy does come off strong and it's a little old-fashioned, we're watching a movie that takes place in 1945. Pardon me if the character is old fucking fashioned. That's the point. And you know, I watch movies like Inglourious Basterds, which I love, and it's just the comparability of Brad Pitt's acting is just, it's not quite there. He just goes above and beyond in these scenes, down to his last breath. He just kills it. So War Daddy, in my opinion, despite all the negative reviews about him just being another man's man or sadomasochist, I don't understand how you could say he takes pleasure from the things that are happening when he's in so much pain. Pretty much the whole movie. And his main thing is that he just wants to keep everyone alive. To me, that's the last thing. Sadomasochism would be the last thing I'd ever call Brad Pitt's character, War Daddy. He's just an old-fashioned guy who's trying his best to keep his crew alive. That's really it. He made a promise to keep them alive, and he's doing everything in his power to keep them alive. I'll move from War Daddy onto Michael Peña's character, Gordo. Gordo, he's a Latino man who's fighting in this tank surrounded by all white people, because that's just the majority of the demographic back then, and he just is a great character. There's scenes in this movie where he's just it's not like every single character is trying to outshine the other one. It's just the perfect amount of humanity in Gordo's character where he's just upset and scared and strong-willed, stubborn. It's just beautifully done. He cares about everyone. He gets upset, heartbroken. He's sad. He's worried. It's just, he kills it. I couldn't think of any better character, or even just the writing for the character is just so well done to where he doesn't overstep. He's just the perfect amount of there. And he's basically what you want Norm's character to be like. You want him to be ready to fight and willing to sacrifice himself and just lovable. Gordo's character is so lovable in this movie. You're just like, he's a fucking a G. John Bernthal's character, Grady, is just a redneck Alabama mechanic. And he is very stuck in his ways. He's basically referred to as a dog in some instances. And for a majority of the movie, you feel like, fuck, I hate this guy. He's just an asshole. He's rude and unforgiving and not kind and just a bully. And then you see these moments where he apologizes or tells Norm that, you know what, man, we may not be good men, but you are, and I'm sorry. And it just kills you. You're just like, thank you. We're not Norm, but we felt it. That was so important to hear, because it's just great writing for a wonderful story arc where you're understanding that he is hardened by war, and he almost was lost. His humanity was almost lost. But just as he's about to lose his humanity and hate everything, he meets Norm and he realizes what a good man is. And it's just so good. The writing is so good in this movie. And John Bernthal's character is just perfectly obnoxious and angry to where you're like, what is your fucking problem? But at the same time, you're like, people like that exist. And I feel sorry for them. And then they just exhibit the perfect amount of humanity to where you're like, thank you, Grady. No, we appreciate you. Just before he dies. It's just beautiful. And then we have Bible. Shia LaBeouf's character, Bible. Now, Bible is exactly as his name suggests. He's a Bible-thumping American whose every triumph and worry in the world can be directed back to the Bible. And I, upfront and honest, I am not a religious person, but they do a great job of just showing you that during this time, the Americans were religious, and to get through war, you have to believe in something bigger than yourself, whether that be, you know, this or that, this God or that God. You have to put your faith in something, or else you're gonna die. And so they show how important, you know, everything is, and you have these moments where Bible's character is just talking about how lucky they are to be alive. Amen. And I'm sorry, but Shia LaBeouf's character, every time he's on screen, it kills me. The pain in his eyes, the fear, the anger, you can just touch it. You can just reach out and touch the beauty. And the silent moments where you're just staring at his face. You don't need to say anything. How much better of an actor can you get when you're sitting there in silence?
Then I heard the voice of the Lord.
And I can feel every tear. There's no tears coming down his face, but I can feel him being choked down. I've been in that situation where I needed to say something, and I just couldn't.
And
because
I said,
just the overwhelming need to stay strong was just so overwhelming. It's just amazing. And I don't understand how somebody could see this movie and just not be touched by how beautifully acted it was. Another character we met was Norm, the new guy. And from the moment you see him, you really just feel lost. He doesn't say much, but you can tell that he's just so mad that he's there. And he would give anything to be somewhere else. But the reality is that there's nowhere else to go. You're stuck there. You can't get out of this. This is what you have to do. And it's scary. You're scared for Norm's character. We don't, because we are with him. We don't belong there. And you're taught the hard way that war's terrible.
Norman.
And I don't understand how people watch the movie and that's the only takeaway you get from it. If you watch Fury and your only takeaway is that war is bad, you're not watching Fury. You had that opinion before you turned the movie on, and that's what you left with. Open yourself up to watch each character. Hang on every breath. I know it's hard, putting your phone down or, just sit in front of the TV and stare at it and take in every moment, every breath, and understand that so many words go unspoken, but nothing's not felt. I don't know if I'm just rambling on because of how much I actually like this movie, and it may not make sense why I like this movie so much. But that's what this channel's for. It's for me to state my opinion and tell you guys what I think, and then you can go on and decide to agree with me or not. That's what we're here to do. Norm falls in love. Norm gets misplaced. He gets thrown through the ringer. He feels anger and hate. Every emotion in the world he feels. Love, suffering, loss. And he still keeps his humanity to the very end. And it's just perfect. So those are the characters, and I love each and every one of them. And you have scenes like when they're all together where each of them talks and stands out, and you feel mad and happy and sad and every emotion you can feel in one instance. You get a little bit of laughter from Gordo's character. I mean, let's just watch this. Let's just watch this scene.
Mealtime talk. Thank you.
Where
Thank you. Thank you.
the squad is upset that they got left behind by War Daddy so that he could go hide away in this house and have a nice meal that they weren't invited to. These guys have been through everything. Death.
You shouldn't.
They lived through everything together. They rely on each other. And he just left them. Let's see. And then you get that last little joke at the end
I'm just drunk.
from Gordo. I'm just drunk. Just so perfectly executed. Things like that are just beautiful. And it's not because the cinematics were amazing. It's not because the plot was awe-inspiringly shocking or anything. It just was each actor was given a character. And instead of performing, they gave a performance. It's amazing. And so we'll jump into the cinematics of the movie to close out this video. I honestly believe that there are other war movies with better cinematics. They don't do anything outstanding. Their imagery is beautiful. At the ending sequence where you zoom out and it represents a skull of bodies, a human skull just in the rubble of everything that the 5 men in that tank left behind. And it's beautiful. Each death is sad, heartbreaking, but nothing technologically amazing. It's just a very well composed movie. And you're really just along for the characters and the character development of each individual person. And that's why I love this movie so much, is that they don't rely on the gimmicks. They don't have amazing scenes like Pearl Harbor when the bombs get dropped, or, you know, the sniper scene of Saving Private Ryan. You're just there with your characters, feeling every emotion, living every moment with them. Just amazing. And so overall, those are my 3 categories. In cinematics, they don't overdo anything, they don't underdo anything. It's the perfect amount of composition that just pushes forward the characters and gives you a solid movie. And it just makes the movie that much more enjoyable, where you don't have to, your eyes don't have to adjust to the CGI of the movie. It's just a very beautifully shot movie that isn't relying on the cinematics. It's giving full force to the actors, and it's telling them to do their best. And they did. They killed it. And that's why Fury is one of my favorite movies of all time. And whether or not you agree, I'd love to hear your opinion. Throw it down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please throw a like on it. If you want to see more content where I talk about stuff that I talk about, hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. This is Brock Talks, and I appreciate you listening. Thanks.
I have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief. Know what I want.